The greatest navigator of his age died in knee-deep water, not crossing the Pacific, not fighting a rival empire, in a skirmish on a small island surrounded by men with spears and fire-hardened sticks, while his cannon sat useless on ships too far offshore to matter. Ferdinand Magellan had just completed the hardest ocean crossing in human history. And then he walked into a fight he had no reason to take, against an enemy he had completely misread. This is the story of Mactan, and the miscalculation that turned the greatest navigator of his age into a warning. In August 1519, Magellan left Spain with one enormous ambition: to find a westward route to the Spice Islands. Whoever controlled cloves, nutmeg, and cinnamon could challenge rivals across oceans. Magellan, a Portuguese-born commander sailing for Spain, believed he could reach Asia by going west. He would not live to finish that journey. In March 1521, after crossing the Pacific, his ships sighted the mountains of what is now Samar. They had reached the archipelago that would later be called the Philippines. But Magellan had not entered an empty world. He had entered a region of chiefs, alliances, rivalries, trade, and obligation. And very quickly, he became part of that world. Whether he understood it or not, local rulers guided Magellan to Cebu, where he met Raja Humabon. That meeting changed everything. Humabon and his queen accepted baptism into the Catholic faith. Magellan gave the queen the Santo Niño, an image of the infant Jesus, as a symbol of their new alliance. To Magellan, this must have felt like a breakthrough. A ruler converted, a foothold gained. For Humabon, the meaning may have been more complicated. Faith, diplomacy, prestige, strategy. Perhaps all of them at once. What we can see clearly is what happened next. Nearby chiefs were expected to provide supplies and accept the new order connected to Humabon and the Spanish. Most complied. But one man refused, Lapulapu of Mactan. That refusal was dangerous, not because Mactan was powerful, but because refusal itself can spread. If one chief could say no, others might wonder why they should kneel. Another Mactan chief, Zula, urged Magellan to force Lapulapu into submission. Humabon backed the call. This is where the story narrows, from a voyage across the Pacific to a local rivalry, and from Magellan, the navigator, to Magellan, the enforcer. Magellan agreed to attack Mactan. He likely believed it would be a demonstration, a quick show of Spanish power, a warning to other chiefs. Proof that his alliance had military value. He had armor. He had muskets. He had crossbows. What he didn't have, and this, to me, is the central tragedy of Mactan, was a clear read of the terrain he was walking into. Before dawn on April 27, 1521, Magellan led his men toward the shore. The ships could not come close to the beach because of shallow water and reef. That meant the Europeans had to wade forward, while their boats remained too far offshore for cannon fire to matter. That single detail is everything. The musketeers and crossbowmen fired from the boats, but the range was too great. Shots had little effect. Defenders could avoid most of the barrage. Ammunition was wasted before the fight was truly settled. Imagine the scene. Smoke above the water, men shouting from boats, armored soldiers struggling through the shallows, and on the shore, the warriors of Mactan watching, waiting, learning. When Magellan's force reached the beach, they were hit by a storm of missiles, arrows, throwing spears, fire-hardened sticks, stones. Spanish armor protected much of the body, but not the legs. Put yourself in Lapulapu's position here. You're watching armored men wade ashore. Their guns are already spent, their legs are exposed. The water is slowing them down. What do? You attack from the front and both flanks simultaneously. You make them fight in every direction at once. That's exactly what happened. The constant barrage broke confidence and control. Magellan ordered houses burned, hoping to frighten the defenders. It didn't break them. It enraged them. The battle was no longer a punishment. It was a fight for the island, in front of allies, in front of rivals, in a place where retreat meant humiliation. Then Magellan was hit. A poisoned arrow struck his unarmored leg. The defenders saw the weakness. They pressed closer. He was wounded again. Warriors focused their attack on him. Those who tried to help were overwhelmed. He had crossed oceans by calculation, read stars, winds, currents, and maps. But his final moments were not abstract. They were close. spears, blades, blood in shallow water. Ferdinand Magellan died on the beach of Mactan. For the Europeans, it was catastrophe. For Lapulapu's warriors, it was victory. The defenders recovered Magellan's body. Humabon reportedly tried to exchange goods for the remains, but the warriors refused. Even in death, Magellan remained political. A body could be proof. A body could say what words didn't need to say. The foreign commander came here. He fought here. He died here. Command eventually passed to Juan Sebastián Elcano, who sailed west and reached Spain in 1522. Completing the circumnavigation, Magellan began but did not survive. That is one of history's strangest ironies. Magellan became immortal through a journey he never finished. The Battle of Mactan was not a simple story of technology against tradition. It was a local conflict pulled into the path of empire, and in the end the geography of Mactan turned imperial confidence into weakness. The reef mattered, the tide mattered, the shallow water mattered, the distance from the ships mattered, the exposed legs of armoured men mattered. Mactan did not stop empire forever. In 1565, Spanish power returned under Miguel López de Legazpi. Colonization would begin in earnest, leading to centuries of Spanish rule. So Mactan did not end conquest. It interrupted it. It wounded the illusion that foreign power was irresistible. For one morning, on one island, an expedition that had crossed the largest ocean on Earth discovered that it could still be defeated by people defending their own ground. Magellan could read the stars. He could cross the Pacific. He could carry the ambitions of kings across the world, but at Mactan he failed to read the shore. He failed to understand the politics beneath his feet. He failed to see that Lapulapu's refusal was not a small problem to be corrected. It was a line drawn in sand and water, a line that said, "This far, no farther," and when the sun rose over Mactan on April 27th, 1521, Ferdinand Magellan, navigator, commander, servant of empire, lay dead on the beach, not at the edge of the world, but at the edge of someone else's home.